Sam, you opened proceedings tonight. You broke a story on The Age Online today about a racism row in Adelaide. What's going on?
Yeah, good evening, Eddie, and to everyone at home. Taylor Walker has found himself embroiled in a racism saga. This is not just Caro, any player at Adelaide. It is one of the more revered figures, a hero of that footy club, their leading goal kicker. And it was an incident a few weeks ago, July 17 to be precise, at an SANFL match. He was watching the Crows and a lot of his teammates there take on North Adelaide in the SANFL. There's Taylor Walker there in circle. Now, my understanding was the alleged comment and racial slur that he made about another player at North Adelaide was made to Matt Crouch, obviously another senior teammate at Adelaide, and it was overheard by at least two other SANFL Crows players and a trainer. It was not heard by anyone at North Adelaide, including Robbie Young, the former Saint, who the comment was allegedly made about. So it was actually the Crows who essentially self-reported Taylor Walker to the club that went to the SANFL and is now at the hands of the AFL Integrity Unit. Now,
so where does it go from here, Sam? Where does it go from this moment? So the AFL have got it. They have to make a ruling on this. Do we have any vision at all as far as when this is going to come down?
My understanding, Eddie, is that this investigation is all but over, and there have been reports tonight that Taylor Walker is going to front the club tomorrow and the players involved and apologise. I've spoken to Adelaide as recently as a couple of hours ago. They maintain there's no press conference or public statement that will be issued tomorrow. But this has angered quite a few people at the club and also outside of the club. And I know of at least one senior Indigenous player that has reached out to Paul Marsh at the AFL Players Association to voice his displeasure with the situation.
Caro, can I ask you, because we know about the Adelaide camp all those years ago and how it really affected Indigenous players over there. How do you see this falling out over in Adelaide now with that?
Well, it's interesting, as Sam's just reported, that I think Channel 7 in Adelaide are reporting that Taylor Walker is going to front the club and potentially the media tomorrow. If Taylor Walker is found to have made these comments, he has signed another one-year deal with the Adelaide Crows. I can't see much future for Taylor Walker, I've got to say. I think this could be the end of... If it's happened, I think this will really hurt his career and could potentially be the end of his career.
That's a big call. I was just about to ask Sam, do you think he doesn't play again this year? But to get to that point where you think that it could end his career?
I reckon it's really damaging, really, particularly in... You put things in context. In today's, society and today's AFL landscape and SANFL landscape, and Ed's mentioned the camp. I mean, they want to get rid of that C word forever. I understand that, but it is true, and Taylor himself acknowledged to me that it was the Indigenous players who were so upset by what went on.
And many of them left, Caro. Let's not forget.
And can I ask you, Sam, will the Adelaide Crows sanction him, or will the AFL tell the Crows what should happen here?
Look, I'm of the belief that the AFL will essentially advise a sanction and it will be club imposed. But on what Caro said, I'm not sure I entirely agree. I think you're right, Caro, that it puts massive pressure on him. But if I was to stand here today and make a prediction, I would think that he would be suspended potentially for this season if, in fact,
but no
the
one
alleged
knows
comment
the
has
official
happened.
outcome yet. I think we're jumping a lot of hurdles here. I think it'd be nice to hear the official outcome.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Let's not injure any party before it occurs.
Well, Ross, let's be brutal about this. Taylor Walker's reputation is already injured, whatever happens. I hate to say it, but that's the brutal nature of this. I don't know whether it's true or not. The reporter on Channel 7 in Adelaide who has reported this story usually gets pretty good mail out of the Crows and out of Taylor Walker. So if this is true, I'm not saying his career is over, but I predict that it'll be very damaging.
If it is true, the best thing Taylor could do would be to stand up as club captain.
Ex-captain.
Well, ex-captain and a legend of the club. And if he has made a grave error, I don't think it necessarily leads to retirement, but I think he could own it.
I agree.
Let's let it roll out, because I want to. This is how hot it's getting, though. Because
I reckon in this environment, it's going to be very.
Okay, all right, guys, we've made the point, so let's move on because we've got a lot to get through. Stephen Rowe is on 5 at AA. He is a former Adelaide Crows footballer. His son James plays for the Adelaide Crows currently, and he had this to say, and he took aim at the reporters who were reporting, including Sam McClure and Caro. Actually, even got mentioned.
Rule 35 of the Peak Rule states, if there is a complaint or racial vilification, strict confidentiality applies throughout the process until a confidential investigation is complete. Now, Ryan and McClure chose not to do that. And for those reasons are for theirs alone. I've spoken to Caroline Wilson and 3 other reporters from Melbourne, and I asked them specifically, would have you wrote that story? They said no.
Caro, would you have written a story if you got the story? I think that the thing that's really bad about this story is not that it was reported, it's that it got out. That there is supposed to be confidentiality, but it got out. Once it gets out, then it's a story. And
Stephen's crow's slip is showing, and he is, by his own admission, completely biased and invested in the Crows, even more now that Jimmy's playing there. He later retracted that comment about me because I called him and said, Stephen, we did not have that conversation. I did not say that, and 100% I would have gone with that story.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what any other journos said, but unfortunately, it's a big story involving one of the biggest names in the game at a time when I honestly thought players didn't go for that sort of stuff anymore.
Look, it's hard to comprehend if true.
In fact it's happened.
Sam, you copped a bit of a drive-by in there, but your job is to report. And the old saying used to be, if people want the news out, it's called PR. If they don't want it, it's called news.
Yeah,
you did the story and you did it well.
To cap off on this, Eddie, the horrible story to report, and unfortunately we don't get to pick and choose necessarily the stories that we do because, we've got to report the hard stories that are worth listening to. But on Taylor, he has been a much-loved figure of that club for the best part of a decade. He was voted as the most important captain at the AFLPA MVP in 2017 when he led them to a grand final. So no one's sitting here castigating Taylor Walker and his reputation, simply just reporting the AFL is investigating what was heard by several people. That's the story.
The investigation's on and we'll get the findings and react accordingly from there.
I'm making the point that if it's true, he's in trouble.
Right,
and I think his reputation is very much damaged.
Right, let's move on. And if he's found not guilty, then I reckon he'll be able to move on pretty quickly from it. Okay.